Hi everyone, this is CricketSong with Lunar Wisdom, and today I want to talk about depression. I had a viewer subscriber send me an email asking about, well actually, let me just read it to you and then I'll give you my advice or my thoughts on it. Okay, so the message went, I'm messaging you today because I have been having issues with my depression for the past year. It has gotten to the point where I've been having awful mood swings and I'm feeling dead at times. I had a rough childhood where I had to deal with abuse from multiple different people. I used to be on medication for my depression, but it didn't really help me. Do you know anything to help improve my depression or my moods, such as diet, meditation, crystals, rituals, anything that can really help me? I'd appreciate your advice. So I must admit that I have had depression, not chronic, maybe. I battled some depression when I was in college, so we're talking about 1990. I started college in 1987 and I graduated in 1991. So it was, I would like to say 1989, 1990 when I started having some issues with depression. I was never medicated, but I did see a therapist and a counselor and it seemed to help at that time, but it got really bad at some point. And then the worst depression I ever had was after the birth of my daughter. I suffered from postpartum depression and I was medicated and I did have counseling and therapy at that time. I can say that I have not had any real issues with depression for many, many years now. My daughter is 12 and I would like to say it probably the depression started right after the birth of my daughter. Like I said, it was postpartum depression and it went on for a few years and then progressively got better. From my experience, and I must say I'm not a professional, and this is just my thoughts, my feelings, and my personal experiences when dealing with depression or any type of mood swings. I mean, this can really, the advice I'm going to give can really help anybody, whether you have depression or not. The first thing is diet, and I really believe that you are what you eat. It makes a lot of sense to me. When we are taking in a lot of processed foods, refined sugars, meat that has been treated with hormones, it really affects you physically. It really affects your body, and hand in hand can really affect obviously your body chemistry and your moods and behaviors, thoughts from that, because when you start changing your body chemistry, it does stuff to you internally. So I would suggest trying to eat as much of a whole food diet as possible. And what I do, meaning, what do I mean when I mean whole foods? It means that if you can get it in its natural form, then, and you can consume it in its natural form, then it's good to eat. If you can't, then stay away from it as much as possible. For example, you can't go out to your backyard and pull off a tree macaroni or pasta. So personally, I stay away from that as much as possible. But I can go in my backyard and get lettuce or get tomatoes. And so anything like, you know, diced tomatoes or even tomato sauce, I would, if I make it myself, I would consume that. So that's the first thing I would suggest. And understand that when you start making changes in your diet, you may, if you're addicted to certain foods, find it's very difficult. When I took myself off or weaned myself off caffeine, I had the world's worst headaches for like 3 days. And then never. I mean, my headaches I used to have quite frequently when I was consuming a lot of processed food, sugar, and caffeine. I sometimes have headaches once or twice a month around my menstrual cycle, but hardly, or if I'm sick. Other than that, I hardly have headaches anymore at all. So diet, changing your diet and trying to consume a more natural or whole food diet may help you, I think, greatly with your depression or any other mood swings. You asked about things like crystals. Crystals and stones, the stones and crystals that I've found that have been helpful with mood swings. I use some of these, and my daughter, who is going through, she just recently, well, maybe it's been about a year or two now, probably a year, started her menstrual cycle, and she goes through some mood swings. So some of these crystals and stones are helpful to her as well. Smoky quartz seems to help. Tiger's eye is one of those crystals I love, stones I love to use for a multitude of purposes, and depression is one of them. Clear quartz is really my go-to crystal personally. I use that for everything. Citrine, selenite, and moss agate are some. I'm sure there's more, but those are the ones that I found have been very helpful with me, and like I said, in my family, with depression and mood swings. Things like meditation are very helpful when dealing with mood swings. I find that doing like a chakra balancing or a chakra cleansing will help balance out the energy flow within my internal chakras. Receiving Reiki, I find, is very helpful as well. If I have a hard time balancing through meditation, going through each chakra and clearing it, I find that getting a Reiki session really helps clear out some of that stagnant energies. I have recently taken up yoga. I think I've been going now since February, and I find that yoga or any sort of energy work really helps with balancing my moods as well. So whether you take a yoga class or a Tai Chi class or a martial arts class, anything that really works with your energy. And if you don't, or you're intimidated by taking a class like that, then just going out and walking and moving within nature, I believe, will really help align your energy. You can send that negative energy to the earth, your stagnant energy to the earth, and pull up some vital energy and life force from the earth herself. So those things I find are helpful. And rituals, not necessarily a particular ritual, but I do find working through shadows, which again, for me, yoga is bringing up some deep internal shadows or issues that I've been carrying for many years that I didn't realize I had, really is sort of bringing them up from the depths. You know, why is it I feel this way about certain things? And if I'm finding that things seem a little too difficult for me to handle, or I'm feeling helpless or hopeless in a situation, I start sort of dissecting that and asking myself why. It's basically sort of doing my own counseling for myself as opposed to sitting across for someone and talking things out. Any sort of rituals, if you do identify things that may be bringing you some sadness or sorrow or grief, doing any sort of release ritual, releasing these things, letting them go, might be helpful for you as well. But I honestly think that when you're dealing with depression, really having the care of a professional is important. Especially if you have, you've been, I guess, diagnosed and you have been on medication. I feel like it's important to, know when you're getting to that point that you may not be able to handle it yourself. And having a support system is important as well when dealing with, these type of mood swings and depression. Working on self-worth, self-love, those self-confidence, those things can help. But for each individual, it's going to be different because we are very individual and having different life experiences. Hopefully I gave you some ideas, and hopefully I answered your questions. I guess that's all I have to say. If you have any other questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the comments section or send me a message. I will do my best to answer you as soon as possible. And please like my video and subscribe if you haven't. And as always, I love you. Mwah.